They say there is a fine line between genius and madness. Some are born with it, and some try too hard to fake it. The schools of medicine, alchemy, chemistry, physics, and more have empowered scientists to be the engineers of the human journey. However, the coin has another side, a far more sinister and selfish side that shows with a twisted mind. Welcome to Nutty History. Today we are looking back at some of the most insane cases of evil scientists that have existed throughout history. Chen Shi Huang, the Mercurial Emperor.
The 13-year-old prince, who became king of the Qin state in 246 BC, went on to conquer all of China for the first time in 221 BC. Known for the formation of the famed Terracotta Army, abolishing the old feudal system, and standardizing writing, weight, and measurement systems, the first emperor of China also ruled with an iron fist following the philosophy of legalism, which was based on the idea that people are more inclined to do wrong than right because they are motivated by self-interest.
Born with the name Yin Zhan, he renamed himself Chen Shi Huang, meaning first cosmic ruler. He was certainly a person of great ambition and ahead of his time, and he definitely wanted to live long enough so that one day he would feel that he was in his element. After accomplishing everything as a ruler and an administrator, he decided to hit the books for a certain reason: to find the cure for death. His obsession and desire to become immortal drove the man beyond the realm of sanity. He would regularly consult magicians and alchemists who were basically the scientists of their time, even though they mostly dabbled in pseudoscience. But hey, even Newton believed alchemy was real.
He organized expeditions to the East China Sea in search of a mythic island of the immortals, and on the suggestion of a certain alchemist, he began drinking quicksilver, also known as mercury, in hopes of prolonging his life. Fact is, the metallic element has an adverse effect if consumed. The continuous consumption of mercury can cause severe damage to the digestive system, and thus cause the demise of Chen Shi Huang during a midlife crisis at 49 years old. So don't drink mercury.
However, it wasn't as soon as a lot of people may have wished for. As the scholars, magicians, and alchemists failed to fulfill his desire to live forever, he punished them severely for their insolence. He considered all of their research and knowledge useless and ordered the burning of thousands of scrolls and other forms of writing, along with 480 living scholars. The rest of them were lucky to simply lose their heads. He also ordered the construction of a grand mausoleum for himself in case he does die, so he can live lavishly as an emperor in the afterlife too. The project demanded forced labor from 70,000 people, and hardly any of them survived the completion. His other ambitious projects for infrastructure also caused nearly 1 million deaths across ancient China.
Pythagoras, the original cultist. Pythagoras holds an important place in the history of the Western civilization. The master of philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, as well as music has been immortalized by the Pythagoras' theorem. He saw the entire universe as nothing but mathematical equations and numerical sequences, like a code at its core, and once remarked the whole cosmos is a scale and a number.
However, it is now proven that Mesopotamians and ancient Indians knew about his famous theorem thousands of years before Pythagoras. Still, he was the first known person to prove the theorem, and he introduced it in the evolution of Western civilization. He was also most likely an Olympian and won laurels for either pugilism or boxing, and he also started a cult in his name. And when we're saying cult, we're talking about an organization similar to how a modern cult operates. In ancient times, the cult meant something entirely different. They were more like small sects, dedicated to one or a few gods that existed in a larger pagan pantheon. But they still had their secret rituals and traditions called mysteries. However, they were not necessarily used intentionally for exploitative means of any kind. But Pythagoras was perhaps the father of modern cultism. The little group he created of people fascinated with numbers grew into something more when they began believing a lot more out there ideas of Pythagoras. They had faith in metempsychosis, or reincarnation, and embraced an egalitarian communal lifestyle, and practiced a rigid set of daily rituals and dietary restrictions. The cult also believed in universal music or harmony of the spheres, wherein it was believed that the movements of celestial bodies were a form of music. They claimed that he could predict the future, that he had a golden thigh, and that a river once spoke to him. He also claimed that he traveled to the underworld of Hades, that is, the other side of life after death.
In 510 BC, Pythagoras and his followers helped Croton win a decisive victory against the neighboring city of Sybaris. However, when Croton tried to be democratic, Pythagoras used his cult to shut down their proposal. Enraged, the people of Croton tried to end Pythagoras and his cult by setting their meeting place on fire. Now, it's debatable if Pythagoras died in the fire or not, but hey, the man was convinced reincarnation is real. So even if he died, for him, it was just hitting the reset button.
Fritz Haber, angel or demon?
In the heat of the First World War, the 1918 Nobel Prize for Chemistry was awarded to a German scientist named Fritz Haber for his work in developing a method of synthesizing ammonia from nitrogen in the air. However, none of his peers agreed to attend the ceremony or congratulate him. The world of science had shunned him. But why?
The process that Haber helped to create enabled the production of fertilizer in quantities that revolutionized agriculture worldwide. Thanks to the Haber-Bosch process, we have been able to solve the problem of food shortages and prevent famines, saving billions of lives in the process. Such was the contribution of Haber to mankind, that we can thank him for half the proteins we have in our body. But the savior of humanity was also responsible for thousands of horrible, agonizing, and excruciating deaths, which constitute a war crime today. The Haber-Bosch process made Fritz Haber rich and a celebrity. He was rubbing shoulders with the royalty and intellectual elite of Germany in no time. But this is where the problem started. Haber was also a nationalist and a militarist, despite being best pals with Einstein, who was an internationalist and a liberal. Despite his wife's protest to his ideology, Haber gladly accepted the offer to develop wartime technologies for Germany. And being a chemist, his most important contribution was to the gas warfare. Before Haber, the gas warfare was not as devastating as it became during the First World War. Most gases used in war were less harmful than modern tear gas. To aid the German cause, Haber worked furiously on creating chlorine gas, risking his own life in the process and losing several colleagues and German troops in accidents during the development.
Allied forces were battling the German army for control of Ypres, a Flemish town in western Belgium. Now, the Germans had taken heavy casualties fighting with many young and untested soldiers in a battle months before they called the annihilation of the innocents of Ypres. Thousands of French, British, Belgian, and Canadian forces were waiting for them in trenches around the town. But the Germans returned with a wild card: Haber's chlorine gas.
The Germans released more than 168 tons of chlorine gas from nearly 6,000 canisters at sunrise on April 22nd. A sickly cloud, like a yellow low wall, began to drift towards the French trenches. More than half of the 10,000 troops died by asphyxiation within minutes. Canadian soldier Lance Sergeant Elmer Cotton described the experience as drowning on dry land. Haber's gas weapons were so effective that German troops were actually rattled by the Allies' rapid retreat. But Haber, according to biographer Margit Zolossi-Jansir, said if you want to win the war, then please wage chemical warfare with conviction. The chemical warfare during the First World War resulted in the death of over 90,000 men and 1.3 million casualties, including Haber's wife, Clara.
Heinrich Kramer, the first witch hunter.
The first ever witch hunter to be officially sanctioned by the Catholic Church, Heinrich Kramer, was the author of the Malleus Maleficarum, or the Hammer of the Witches, the pseudoscience of witch hunting. Active in the 14th century, he was not a popular person and was often considered a deviant because his intense line of questioning about the carnal habits of the accused women made everyone uncomfortable. A lot of priests tried to ban him from working in their dominion, but Kramer was given full professional immunity by none other than the Pope himself.
His most prevalent method of deducting if a person is a witch or not was the hot rod method. And no, that's not a euphemism. A metal rod would be heated to red-hot temperatures, and the accused would be asked to hold it and walk 3 paces without dropping it. Now, obviously, the test was cruel to make one certainly fail, but according to Kramer, that's where the cleverness of the test came in.
Kramer boasted that the test was designed to be failed by everyone, therefore forcing witches to cheat and use magic to keep the grip on the rod. Thus, they would give themselves away. He also created the infamous trial by drowning test, where a person could only prove their innocence by drowning. So, well, by dying. Most of these damned either way tests were prescribed in his notorious book and shaped the future witch hunters and created a trail of thousands of dead women and men.
Johan Conrad Dipple, the snake oil seller. Believe it or not, Johan was the son of a German Christian cleric who studied alchemy at a proper university. Yeah, alchemy was a real subject back then. Early in his career, he worked in Berlin as an alchemist trying to find means to convert mercury into gold. However, he believed that alchemy was more than the science of metal transfiguration.
His religious views got him in hot water in 1707, and he had to flee to Holland. There he got interested in medicine and completed his doctorate in Leyden in 1711 and began practicing immediately. He ended up being the royal physician at the Danish royal court. At the same time, he also developed Dipple's oil, which was sold as one solution for many effects, but it was hardly a decent insect repellent at best. It is believed that Dipple's fascination with reanimation never ended. According to a historical account, when the Grimm brothers were collecting fairy tales from the countryside of mainland Europe, they heard a rumor about a doctor named Johan Conrad Dipple von Frankenstein who wanted to create his own method of life that would be self-sustaining, an archaic version of what we call artificial intelligence.
He was suspected of grave robbing and experimenting on cadavers while trying to find a machination to conduct a soul transplant. You heard me, soul transplants. Sort of like Freaky Friday, but in a necromancy flavor. Grimm then shared this story with their English translator, who happened to be the stepmother of a young author called Mary Shelley, mostly known for the novel Frankenstein.
William Buckland, the Heart Eater. An alumnus of Corpus Christi College, Oxford, Buckland was a great revolutionary scientist who was remembered mostly for being the first man to pen a complete description of a fossilized creature called the Megalosaurus. What he thought was a species of an extinct mammoth reptile was actually the first discovery of a dinosaur, a term that won't be used until the mid-19th century. He was a contemporary of Charles Darwin, and his work proved that Kirkdale Cave in North Yorkshire had been a prehistoric hyena den for which he was awarded the Copley Medal.
As much as a brilliant paleontologist Buckland was in the field, he was equally eccentric on his dining table, game for any kind of game. He was willing to try any kind of meat no matter what was the source, may it be a roasted hedgehog or a potted ostrich, even a black panther. I bet he wouldn't have tried Spam. Oh, and he loved eating fossils too. He also drank bat urine once just to try it. However, he did refuse to try a garden mole for some peculiar but sadly unknown reason.
According to some rumors, Buckland also had eaten the shrunken heart of King Louis XIV, but we find it hard to believe that he ate that for science. Probably had it with pita chips.
There are so many more examples of crazy mad scientists who have impacted human history, but we're out of time for now. Would you like us to cover more in a future video? Tell us in the comments. If you would like us to create more videos like this, please do share, like, subscribe, and ring the bell to support us.